Welcome to Modern Sales Meltdown. With my dear friend David Chernick, here I am, Gareth Wax, many purple hats fame, talking today about all things modern sales, and particularly today, if you're starting off a outbound sales program, or what we also refer to as starting outbound, if this could apply to you. And this was inspired by the fact that one of David's clients is literally just starting this process. Talk to me, man.
Well, they're not doing it for the first time, by the way, but they are starting, a new outbound campaign. And so many people want to do this. So many people want to do this. They're always saying, they do all the lead gen, they do all the inbound marketing, and we love that. We love inbound marketing. I mean, it's the best because they're trying to educate us and, develop a long-term relationship with us before we even become a qualified opportunity. All of that stuff, puts the power in the buyer's hands, all of that. However,
but
very often,
we live in a cynical world, and in this post-truth world, people see information from so-called experts as bogus, and so inbound marketing is stuttering a little bit where it should be flying, because people don't take information as read. They take it with not just a pinch of salt, but a pinch of arsenic too, and they think, well, he's telling me this and he's showing me how wonderful they could be and giving me, well, I don't believe any of that. And this is the reason why an outbound campaign really can make the difference, because you are hitting them face on. And, whether people say that cold calling is dead or not, I still think it can be the engine room.
Well, there are some very useful things that come out of outbound. And I use outbound rather than cold calling because, it's not just cold calling, although it is cold calling, but it's not just that. I seriously hope that Brian Halligan isn't anywhere near this at the moment. But anyway.
You're calling him out because if he wasn't, somebody will say to him, Brian, have you seen that thing that David and Gareth are warbling on about?
Of course he hasn't. He's not interested in this. So it's much too small time. But I picture him in my head whenever I sort of challenge inbound, because I am a fan of inbound. And I'm not saying to ignore inbound to do outbound in the same way that I would not say do outbound and, ignore inbound. But at some point, and this happens to me a lot, because I work with a lot of companies, obviously, the daddy or the mummy, the boss of the company, the owner. Right, I just want everybody phoning everybody. Right, we got to do some outbounds.
I want you getting on the desks. I want you banging the phones. I want you smashing monkeys.
Right, and it is seen as a quicker route. It is not a particularly organic route, and it requires some graft. But what it enables you to do is to specifically target people and companies and buyers that you actually really want, not through a persona, not through some generalized characteristics, but specifically, I want Acme Trading as my client, right? Make me a list of Acme Trading type companies with these characteristics, and I'm going to phone them, right? We're going to contact them.
Right.
We've got specific story and message and offering for them. We've probably got some case studies, some happy clients that do exactly that, and we want to tell them. We don't want to be waiting for long periods of time where we write a nice blog about our experiences dealing with that industry and about the challenges that our industry faces. I mean, that's all great. I want them in my pipeline, right? And I want you to take them out of a list of people who don't know us yet, who we haven't spoken to yet, and put them in our qualified opportunity.
It still has the word cold in it, though, doesn't it? It's a cold list. It's a cold list. You're taking them from cold to warm, right?
Now, it's a cold list, which means a couple of things. It's a list to start with, which means you're going to have to, in some way, buy it, either doing your own desk research and researching it and spending money on getting it that way, or buying it from a reputable list broker.
That's been GDPR. That's been GDPR and
bearing in mind, whenever you buy data, you are buying the data, a list of people who have inadvertently ticked the box or not ticked the box because they couldn't get their head around the double negative of, do you want your details sold to other reputable companies or not? And then you, oh, is it? Do I tick it for not being on the list or tick it for, yeah, right? So you are buying
it, accusing it of being purposely ambiguous.
Well, I mean, you're not allowed to be purposely ambiguous anymore, but you are ticking those people. I mean, who signs up to be put on mailing lists? I don't know, but some people do. That's not the only way they get their data. Of course, they're getting their data from public records and scraping large volumes of data and that kind of thing. But it's cheap, so a lot of people do it, and a lot of people do it at volume. Right? They're buying tons of it.
Well, it's the only way to do it, isn't it? Because the attrition rate is so huge.
Well, it depends how you do it. Because I hate spam. I hate spam.
I love a spam filter, though. I'll carry on.
So there are a number of different disciplines to apply to setting up an outbound campaign, and without going into too much detail on every little factor, I'll give you the main ones, and I'll tell you why most people fail at it. Yeah.
All right.
But the main things to bear in mind here is that its size is not everything. Just because it's cheap doesn't mean you have to buy thousands of these things. Think how many people you're realistically going to be able to call. It takes, for example, an average of probably about, this is if you're doing it right, 6 attempts to touch someone to be able to actually get a conversation.
6? I thought it was 8.
I've heard that figure, but if I look at my data where people do it my way, it's about 6. And the 6 could be, well, I do this for a living, mate. And I do it myself. I'm constantly doing it. I'm constantly picking up the phone to strangers that I want to deal with. Yeah. So you develop some, there are some competencies. If you optimize, and this is one of the things, is to try and optimize every single thing that you're doing. Optimize the emails that you're sending, the text that you're putting in those emails, the subject line, who it's from, the structure of the email, the first line that you write in the email, what you write around your signature, all of these things, the call to action, the pacing, the leading. There's a lot of science. There's a dozen different things that you can optimize to make sure that your email hits the spot. It is an investment of time and effort. Yeah. And bear in mind, the way I sort of look at it, because I deal with the business owners, so this has to be a financial discussion. How much money are we spending on this thing and how much are we going to get out? And the way I encourage them to look at it is like this. If you buy a piece of data, somebody in a particular sector with their email address, I don't know, it's like 25 cents a piece of data.
Yes.
Yeah. So you might buy, if you've got a team of 2 or 5, you might buy a few hundred, right? So it's pretty cheap.
Your typical purchase tends to be 1,000 minimum. Really,
I know, but not my clients. I don't make them do that. I make them to tone it down, and I make them invest heavily in each one. Do it properly, right? Don't be a spammer. This is not a scattergun approach, because you will learn other things by doing it this way.
So when you're buying the data, you're saying do heavy criteria, so you really are tying it down.
As specific as you can. So you start with your 25-cent piece of data, which will be their name, their company, a few other bits and pieces, and maybe their email address typically, and maybe a generic phone number, and often a generic email address. You phone those people up, and you find out something like, just in the phoning of them, their mobile number or their own email address rather than just info at. You are turning that 25-cent piece of data into like a 50-cent or $1 piece of data, right? You are increasing the value of it. You find out that that person only works Monday to Thursday because they play parenting on Friday, or that piece of data is now worth $1.50. you find out the basic fundamental qualification criteria, which we've talked about many, many times on this show. So if you find out from them who their current provider is, now, what would you pay to find out the name of the person who could become your client and their current provider? It enables you to phone up and say, yo, are you still using Acme Lead Gen? Yeah, that's worth, you'd pay a tenner for that. If you find out when their renewal date is for the service that you're selling, you'd pay $20 for that. So every time you're getting an extra piece of data, especially if it's qualification data, if they were to, what their buying cycle is, if they were to become a client, when would that be? What is their renewal date? Or, when do they need the stuff by? Specifically, what sort of thing would it be that they're buying? And budget thing, if you were to become a client, how much do you think you'd be spending on this stuff? Yeah, if you find out any one of those things and you had all three, I mean, think about it. How much would you spend if you had a piece of data that had all of those things answered, together with the language that they used in order to describe those things that you are busy writing down word for word? Again, another thing we constantly talk about here. So if you go into it with that mindset, that all I'm trying to do is to increase the value of each piece of data, ultimately turning some of it into actual paying clients where it has a lot of value to it. It's worth 2 or 3 times its annual profit if it's a business service.
Right.
That's the kind of formula for calculating whether you're getting an ROI on your outbound. And every single part of it, whether it's phone calls, messages, DMs, emails, and all of the rest of it that builds up into your average of 6 attempts to touch them before having a conversation, during which time, of course, you can qualify them out. But in those 6 attempts, we are adding value to those pieces of data. We end up with a qualified sales opportunity that we can then put in our pipeline and then push through a pipeline to close them. So that is what you're doing. I did say that I would try and mention some of the pitfalls.
Go on then.
So, the pitfalls are many. It's a hazardous journey, right?
Well, it's the trouble is, right, the way in which sales managers typically make the journey sound is if you smash the phone enough and if you make enough notes and if you put it into our CRM and if you refer to it when you follow up and you do the follow-ups, you'll win through. But there is all these bits and pieces which are often defined by the time of the year. So if your target audience is accountants, April has the time.
Don't phone them today.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Absolutely, don't phone today. If your target audience is retail, don't talk to them close to Easter. Don't talk to them close to Christmas. If your target audience is in the food, in the eateries and restaurants and hospitality, I couldn't find the word hospitality. Be sensible to major things that they're going to be, because you're going to find it hard to get through. And even if you're smashing the phone, you could end up pissing them off purely because their head is somewhere else.
So there are many, many factors, but the main ones that I find that hold people back are not so much the factors that are to do with the people that you are trying to contact. They're mainly to do with ourselves.
Yes, fear of failure and that, all that.
To be able to sustain the level of focus and conscientiousness on doing all of these little tasks, or keeping a note of what they have said word for word, not getting into long conversations about your product or anything. You are literally trying to qualify them in or out. Yeah. Focus on those questions until they pretty much hang up. Yeah. Doing it with consent. As soon as somebody says no, it's no. We ask them at that point, is that no, never call you again? In which case I will tick the box that says do not call, as I'm supposed to do by law. Or is it no, not at the moment? And if you want, I can call you back next week, next month, next year, in decade. You tell me. Yeah. And actually, if you
doesn't it scare people off? by being so prescriptive?
Yeah, they can do. They can do. But we've got a job to do, and so we do it with consent. Yeah, we do it with efficiency, so we are not wasting any of their time by meandering around some conversation contrived to try and establish a relationship. We get straight to the point.
You don't want to answer their football team? Or...
No. Yeah. We've had that. What would you use for? No, we don't do that. We don't treat the person who's answering the phone as a gatekeeper. They are not a gatekeeper. Nobody's paid to be a gatekeeper. They are paid. They are paid to try and screen calls and make sure that the right ones get through. Those people in the names, we record their names. They are an important part of the people that you'll be speaking to. If you do outbound, we set ourselves realistic targets and stretching targets. And we recognize, this is one of the most important things, we recognize that this is going to be grunt work. This is like doing your press-ups. Yeah, the analogy I often give, and I don't give it to the client. Yeah, I probably gave it to the client that's starting today, is a few years ago, I wanted to plant more edible stuff in my garden. Yeah, fruit trees.
Yeah, you're very proud of that. You're very proud of your fruit trees.
And I've got flourishing fruit trees in my garden, and they're growing in clay. Yeah, so of course, I was careful what varieties of fruit I was going to get. I was going to get varieties of fruit that are used to our climate, and our known English apple trees and English cherry trees and that kind of thing. But I wanted them to establish quickly because I ain't very good at looking after my own garden. So, and I wanted them to be healthy. I like a healthy tree. I'm a little bit into bonsai, as it happens. But I spent a few years, I think 3 years, preparing the ground in which these trees were going to go.
3 years?
It might have been 2 years, 2 seasons.
It's still a hell of a long time. I thought you were going to say 3 months.
No. I mean, I maintain a compost heap. I make my own compost, and I, over 2 weeks, it might have been 3 year period, prepared the piece of earth where this was going to go, digging in my muck, digging. And if you are into gardens and gardening, that's probably bottom of your list of the types of jobs that you want to do. You want to be planting, cultivating, couturing, trimming. I love trimming.
The fun stuff.
But you've got to become adept at doing the grunt, the sweaty, hard grunt, even trying to get into a mindset where you are enjoying it, make it almost meditative. Those calls, the more you focus on doing those calls right, the more you focus on the empty boxes that you are trying to fill in and the scripts that you have written that you are saying with aplomb and purpose.
With aplomb.
The more that you're doing that, the better it is, the quicker the time goes, the easier it becomes. And you'll ache a little bit afterwards, but it'll be a good pain because it would have delivered something of value to you.
There you go. Straight from the horse's mouth. Thank you once again, David Treacle. Chernick. My name is Gareth Wax. We meet here weekly. We call it Modern Sales Meltdown. We appreciate it if you come. By the way, a little note from the LinkedIn thing. People may have noticed interaction and engagement have dropped like a stone over the last 3 weeks. Fear not. They are screwing around with the algorithm again. It's coming back. So if you're doing your searches and you're trying to find people ready to do that phoning, don't worry, you will find them. Just keep pushing. Until next time, thank you so much, David. Keep your feet on the ground. It doesn't work anymore. No. Oh, there he goes. Keep your feet on the ground, keep reaching for the stars, and try, please, to look after that mental health. Bye-bye.
Ciao, ciao.